Thanks, Andrew. Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bernard Doyle. I'm the Principal of U Architects. I'm joined by Matt Edis, Managing Director of SCS, Sustainable Construction Services. Both Matt and I spent the majority of our careers in large firms before opening our own practices over a decade ago. SCS is a leading Bristol-based consultancy that helps to make business sense of environmental legislation in construction. They're a one-stop shop for all aspects of sustainability. View Architects is a small, agile practice, also based in Bristol, primarily focusing on public sector projects with a particular interest and expertise in the education sector. As such, we're very familiar with funding challenges faced by such organisations. One such challenge, of course, is the subject of this seminar, BREEAM. BREEAM, or Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method, to use its full name, is a sustainability assessment method used for infrastructure and building projects. It provides a methodology for the evaluation of the design, procurement, construction, and operation of a development, using a standard range of targets. These targets cover various sustainable categories and work together to encourage a development to have low emissions, to have reduced energy consumption, to be well adapted to climate change, to encourage biodiversity, and generally to have low environmental impact. The evaluation is rated and certified by independent licensed assessors, such as Matt, who provide scores ranging from pass to outstanding. Typically, capital funding projects in the education sector require an excellent rating. BREEAM is considered an important measure of quality as the process does not only focus on sustainable targets, but tends to encourage innovation and can lead to improved design and construction standards that lower operational costs, increase asset values, and enhance the well-being of the people who live and work in them. And of course, by using a set methodology certified by independent licensed assessors, the evaluation is a reliable, objective benchmark. So, how do you achieve a BREEAM Excellent rating for your project? There are activities your architect and design team will manage, which are consistent for all projects where environmental sustainability is a key performance indicator. For example, targeting energy efficiency above the minimum standards of the building regulations. This could be achieved by achieving high levels of thermal insulation and airtightness. They will look at the viability of microgeneration, such as photovoltaic panels or wind turbines, together with sustainable heating systems such as biomass and ground source heat pumps. And using passive design solutions, this includes orientating the building to benefit from or avoid solar gain, or using the fabric of the building to act as a heat sink to reduce or remove the need for mechanical cooling. They will consider how to maximise visual comfort. This includes the levels of daylight, external views, and the design of artificial lighting, and will strive to achieve the optimum levels for indoor air quality, thermal comfort, acoustic performance, security, and health and safety. But BREEAM encompasses wide-ranging categories covering design, procurement, construction, and operation, and the design activities I just mentioned only equate to less than a third of the total possible score. BREEAM uses a set methodology with credits awarded for very specific activities. In key areas, minimum standards must be achieved, as well as the overall score. This is to ensure fundamental environmental issues are not overlooked. The methodology requires all assessment decisions to be based on verified, credible, evidence-based project information. This maintains consistency and confidence in the process. The evidence must also be obtained at the right time. For example, early decisions such as the selection of a development site should be correctly assessed. On occasions, there may be little choice, but this must be evaluated and evidence must be collected if any score for this part of the process is to be obtained. To maximise a BREEAM rating, the project team must remain cognizant of the assessment timeline. This outlines the stage at which credit should be addressed. If BREEAM advice is taken on too late, a number of BREEAM credits may not be achieved or may only be possible at additional cost or disruption to the project. For this reason, it's important to select and appoint the lead designer and sustainability consultant as early as possible, so they can not only provide the right guidance when these early decisions are made, but can ensure credible, evidence-based project information is obtained. There are a few categories where this is particularly relevant. I'll now hand over to Matt, who will cover these and other categories in more detail, together with advice on how to manage the later stages of the BREEAM process. Over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Bernard. I've been helping clients with BREEAM now for over 15 years. And although the methodology has changed over that time, some of the key themes have remained. What's always been consistent with BREEAM is that you have to work hard in multiple different categories if you want to get that magical figure of 70% needed for the excellent rating. One of the consistent challenges is if you don't do things at the right time, it can make, especially at a time when it's going to make a significant environmental impact on your building, you will not be rewarded in BREEAM. This impact of late consideration can affect the overall score by as much as 20%, as shown on the graphic. Basically, I've looked back at our projects and worked out that if we get involved on a project at RIBA Design Stage 1, i.e. the feasibility stage, there is potential to significantly increase the score when compared to only starting at RIBA Design Stage 3, i.e. the detail design stage. This means that if you're working on, say, a D&B contract, you cannot simply ignore BREEAM and then dump all the responsibility onto the contractor to deliver that target rating. The message is, embrace BREEAM at the outset and excellent is viable. Ignore till much later and you'll start to struggle to achieve even basically a very good rating. One of the areas that you would need to focus on early is transport. It's worth 10% of the BREEAM score, and it's vital that from the start of the project you develop a detailed travel strategy and do a full travel survey. I'm no expert in transport, but I've seen so many times how long it can take to properly survey a site, get the strategy to align and get it to work for the future building. This can be really difficult if there are multiple vested interested parties or details about the future occupancy that are not fully understood early on. You should also not simply rely on what you provide to, say, the local planning department if you're going for planning approval, for example. The difference is that with different local authorities, they ask for different requirements, which may not be as onerous as what BREEAM is asking you for. It is important to remember that if BREEAM is required by things like government funding or by planning targets, it by itself is not actually government legislation. BREEAM is run by a former government department that is now a private organisation, and its aim is to promote best practice environmental performance. Therefore, by its very nature, BREEAM is asking you to exceed regulatory or legislative minimum standards. Another section of BREEAM that you need to grab by the nettle early on is ecology. BREEAM rewards you for doing the right thing at the right time, and if you don't think about ecology at the outset, you're unlikely to make the best decisions ecologically for your site. Ecology is worth between 13 and 15% of the score in BREEAM, and if you don't get an ecologist on board to survey the site from the outset, you are risking losing about 5 to 6% of your score straight off the bat. These surveys are vital, but are highly dependent on the season. If you miss the right seasonal window, you may encounter a massive delay which could take up to a year on your project. Bat and bird nesting seasons, for example, will affect both when you need to survey the site and what time of year you might need to do your enabling works. BREEAM also rewards the use of brownfield sites and redeveloped existing buildings, but it's not all lost if you're on a greenfield site. But if you are on greenfield, then you can score well, but only if you work much harder and you have to offset the loss of ecological value much more robustly. Along with embracing ecology and transport, the third area that I get clients to focus on early on in a project is materials. You may have thought I might have said energy, and it's true that energy performance is a key part of the BREEAM process, and I will talk about energy in a moment. But if you don't address the issue of material selection early in your project, your chances of achieving a high BREEAM rating will drop like a lead balloon. The reason for this is that BREEAM wants you to do a full life cycle assessment of the key materials that you're using. This basically means looking at embodied carbon of materials in great detail. They want you to do this before you go to planning or move out of concept design. If you don't, it will be too late to change many of the materials you've agreed, either with the planners or the budgetary assumptions that you've made that start to lock materials in. This life cycle analysis does not come cheap, and it is a cost that clients are unlikely to want to fork out for when they don't even know if their building will achieve planning consent and therefore if it will go ahead. However, without this analysis prior to planning, you will lose up to 10% of your BREEAM score immediately, and your chances of achieving excellent will almost be dead. I think it's fair to say that BREEAM does come in for some criticism for this type of front loading of additional costs onto clients. Clients don't want to pay for these type of additional services and reports. I understand that, and especially if it's a building that will be approved by the planners, for instance. My only defence for this with BREEAM is that if you're asking for these questions from BREEAM, it's normally asking them because it's going to be environmentally the better decision and the right decision. I suspect if planning process in the UK were different, these costs might not be so much of an issue. So, once you've addressed the early actions, then design choices become critical. Energy is obviously the big one. It is an issue that people most associate with BREEAM. BREEAM promotes the delivery of highly efficient buildings with good metering and good equipment. However, what you may not know, may not be aware of, is that it also rewards direct consideration of operational energy use. In the construction industry, it is well recognised that there is a performance gap between what is being designed and what is being achieved in terms of actual energy use. Clients and occupiers seem to think that buildings will automatically perform well once they are handed over. The reality is energy use in a building is more like a marriage rather than a Hollywood love story. And what I mean by that is if it takes a lot of hard work and consideration from all parties to get it to work, errors can occur at any level, whether it's someone opening a window at the wrong time of the day, through to how the building management's heating set points are all set up. All these elements, along with computer energy modelling, oversimplification of the real world, all have their part to play in this gap. Therefore, BREEAM rewards people who are undertaking predictive operational energy use studies to try and narrow this performance gap. When it comes to BREEAM, I'm a pragmatist, so I see that there are limitations and weaknesses with it. However, it's these deeper type of thinking and strategies that it's trying to take on board that is really what it's pushing for and why it achieves a better building. There are other areas of BREEAM that I don't have time to go into great detail now about. However, it does include topics such as pollution, where BREEAM rewards you for reducing flooding, improving air quality, reducing intrusive light. It includes considerations of things like water use as well, both inside and outside the building. And it also tackles how projects are delivered on site and how environmental issues are dealt with throughout the construction stages. However, the final thing to leave you with is the importance of contractual documents in the BREEAM process. Contracts are not the first thing that you think about when you're talking about something environmentally good. However, our experience is that many of our competitors miss this vital step. You would think it would be obvious that what you target for BREEAM should align with what is in the specification documents and drawings of the architects and the engineers and the other design disciplines. But this is not always the case. I cannot stress enough how important this issue is, because if there is something that's not in the contract, it's not going to get built. This is why BREEAM can sometimes be so difficult to manage on site. Get it wrong, and there is a gap between what is in the BREEAM pre-assessment and what is in the contract will make BREEAM more expensive to deliver on site and make your target rating much, much more difficult to achieve. With that, I will hand you back to Bernard.
Thank you, Matt. So, to summarise, BREEAM's a methodology for the evaluation of the design, procurement, construction and operation of a development using a standard range of targets. These targets are grouped into 9 categories covering obvious sustainable topics such as energy, ecology and pollution, and less obvious ones such as management, health and well-being. The overall objective is to encourage a development to have low environmental impact. The evaluation is rated and certified by independent licensed assessors who require verified, credible, evidence-based project information. Assessments are rated between pass and outstanding, but for education projects, a score of excellent or 70% is required. To achieve this, you cannot delay the assessment until the whole design team has been appointed. Early actions, in particular relating to transport, land use and ecology, are essential. To obtain a BREEAM Excellent score, it will need the input of numerous project members, including the building contractor, all of whom must be contractually obliged to deliver your requirements. And remember, if you succeed, it can lead to improved design and construction standards that lower operational costs, increased asset values, and enhance the well-being of the people who work and learn in them. This concludes our presentation this morning. I hope this was interesting and informative, and we look forward to taking any questions. Thank you.